Today, we're going to show you how to transform your garage floor with our 2-part 100% solids epoxy garage floor coating kit. Let's look inside. The 2.5 car garage kit includes 2 bottles of epoxy resin, 2 bottles of epoxy hardener, 2 epoxy mixing buckets, 2 stir sticks, 2 roller covers, decorative flakes, and 1 bag of concrete etch to prepare the concrete. Here's a list of recommended items you might need to complete the project. Now, let's get started. First, clear everything off your garage floor and store it in a place where it can stay for a few days. Grab your broom or vacuum to get rid of loose dirt and debris. Make sure to remove all grease and oil stains using a heavy-duty degreaser, being sure to follow the safety instructions. Now, you're ready to clean. For best results, use a pressure washer. Scrub high traffic and heavily soiled areas with a stiff, bristled scrub brush. Then, squeegee the water away from the cleaning area. Repeat this process until the floor is completely clean. You'll know it's clean when the rinse water is clear. Now that your floor is clean, we're going to apply the concrete etch. The concrete etch creates a microscopic texture in the concrete, helping the epoxy coating to bond to the floor. Before you start mixing the concrete etch, make sure you put on protective eyewear and gloves. Keep the garage doors open for ventilation. An important note: the floor must be damp before applying and stay wet throughout the entire etching process. If needed, mist the floor with a hose before you apply the concrete etch. For this step, you'll need your 3 to 5 gallon bucket and something to stir with. Do not use the bucket or stir sticks included in the kit. Those are reserved for the epoxy. Fill your bucket with 2 gallons of clean water. Add the concrete etch and mix until it's completely dissolved. Pour the concrete etch evenly over the floor in sections. You might notice a slight odor or bubbling on the floor when applying the concrete etch. This is normal. Using a stiff scrub brush, vigorously scrub the concrete etch into the concrete. Remember, the floor must remain damp through the entire concrete etch process. So mist the floor with a hose before it starts to dry. Pay extra attention to tire tracks and areas where your car tires sit. High traffic areas get the most heat and abrasion, so they'll need extra elbow grease to open the pores of the concrete and promote better adhesion of the epoxy. Leave the concrete etch on the floor for at least 15 minutes. Do not let the concrete etch dry on the floor. If needed, lightly mist the floor with a hose to ensure it remains wet for the entire 15 minutes. Next, thoroughly rinse the floor at least 3 times to ensure no concrete etch is left behind. The etch rinse will not hurt grass or plants. Squeegee water out of the garage each time you rinse the floor, being sure to remove any pooled water. Now, we wait and let the floor dry, and it must be completely dry for the epoxy to adhere correctly. Let the floor dry for 24 hours or longer. Once the floor is etched, it's time to mix the epoxy. You can walk on the floor once it's dry, but only wearing socks or clean shoes. Otherwise, you can track dirt or leave markings on the floor. Now is a good time to repair cracks if you haven't already done so. Ensure you follow the manufacturer's instructions for the crack filler and give it enough time to dry before applying the coating. Before proceeding, check the weather. The outdoor temperature must be between 50 and 90 degrees Fahrenheit. If the weather is cooperating, you can begin. We recommend using painter's tape or plastic sheeting to protect garage door tracks, walls, foundation edges, and any other objects. Make an edge with tape where the garage door meets the floor to create a nice clean line when you're finished. The epoxy coating will fade with exposure to sunlight, so don't apply the epoxy beyond the garage door threshold. Now, you're ready to mix the epoxy. You're going to mix 1 part A and 1 part B at a time. That's because you have a limited amount of time to apply it once it's been mixed. If it's between 50 to 80 degrees Fahrenheit, you have 1 hour. If it's between 81 to 90 degrees Fahrenheit, you have 45 minutes. Make sure you put on protective eyewear and gloves. First, remove the seal and pour part A into one of the mixing buckets supplied in the kit. Next, forcefully shake part B for a full 60 seconds. Shake it upside down and all around to get the thicker material at the bottom mixed in. Remove the seal and add part B into the mixing bucket. Grab one of the stir sticks from the kit and mix vigorously for a full 5 minutes, scraping the edges and bottom of the bucket while mixing vigorously. Use a stopwatch. This is important, so we'll say it again. Make sure you mix vigorously for the full 5 minutes to ensure the coating cures correctly. Insert a disposable liner into the paint roller tray. Then, with the components combined, pour in the mixture. You're now ready to apply the epoxy. Start by using a 3-inch paintbrush to apply the coating along walls, corners, and other hard-to-reach areas. Then, use a 9-inch roller frame with the extension pole and the roller cover supplied in your kit to apply the coating to the rest of the floor. The best way to go about this is to work in small 4x4 foot sections, moving backwards towards the opening of your garage. Apply the epoxy using an M pattern, like this. Apply evenly to avoid pooling in one spot. Be sure to apply enough epoxy. If you can see the concrete, you need more. Maintain a wet edge by overlapping the previously applied section. Choose one direction and stick with it. This technique will help eliminate any roll lines. Once you finish applying the epoxy to a 4 foot by 4 foot area, apply the decorative flakes immediately while the floor is still wet. Pour half of the flakes into a separate container for the other half of the garage. Now put a small amount of flakes in your hand and toss them up high into the air over the freshly coated section so they fall and disperse as evenly as possible. Do not throw them directly onto the floor, as this will result in a blotchy appearance. You should be halfway done with the floor by the time you run out of epoxy if you're coating a 550 square foot garage floor. Repeat the process using a new mixing bucket in the kit. But first, remove the old roller cover and put on a new one. Add A. Shake B for 60 seconds. Pour it into the bucket and mix vigorously. Remember to mix vigorously for a full 5 minutes. As the coating starts to dry, you can remove the painter's tape from the floor below the garage door. Do not allow the coating to dry in direct sunlight. Close the garage door to prevent sun, animals, and debris from getting in. Do not close the garage door all the way. It is best to leave a small gap before contact with the concrete. The floor will be ready for light foot traffic in 10 hours and vehicle traffic in 24 to 36 hours. These time frames are dependent upon weather conditions and temperature. If the floor is still tacky, it needs more time to dry before you can walk on it. As you clean up, wash all tools and equipment immediately after using them. Allow any unused product to dry and harden before discarding according to local regulations. Congratulations! Your garage floor is now completely transformed, ready to show off and enjoy. Here's to a job well done.